Hey guys, Deejay here and welcome back to another of my beginner's guide videos in my series for Escape from Tarkov. If you're new to the game and haven't already done so, I would highly recommend going to check out part 1 of this series. And if you've enjoyed any of these videos and the content's been useful for you, I would ask that you click the subscribe button and like the video. That will help me out a lot, and it will also let you guys know when I have another video uploaded. In this video, I want to cover a few do's and don'ts, some tips, and things that might not be immediately obvious for when you first start playing the game and you're going into your first few raids. These are kind of basic tips that will help you to learn more quickly and get the best out of the game, both in raid and out of the raid. So let's get started. First of all, I want to talk about meds. There's two real different kinds of meds that I would put into the categories, and the first is these up here, which are really early game meds, although they can be used throughout, and then the more expensive later game meds, the ones that you would typically carry if you're full geared. Obviously there's no restriction on that, but generally these tend to unlock later or need to be looted from a raid. When you're at a very low level in the early game, you're going to always want to make sure you have at least 2 of these AI2 cheese blocks and at least 2 bandages with you. It's worth keeping them in your pockets, and also a spare set in your secure container. You also want to make sure that you have your meds bound, and what I mean by that is you have this hotbar down at the bottom of the screen, which has a box for each corresponding number on your keyboard. You can do it in one of 2 ways. You can either hover over and drag that onto the number, or you can hover over and just press the number and it will automatically bind it down here. That means when you're in the raid, if you get injured, you can just press the number and it will automatically start the healing process, rather than you having to open your inventory, right click and use the item. So it's a much faster, more efficient way of doing that. As you progress through the game, you'll find that you use these a lot less. You need 2 because the AI2 will heal HP and the bandage will repair blood loss, wounds. The car medkit, the Salewa and the IFAK will do both of those things, with the IFAK taking up the least amount of space to do it, and the Salewa I think generally being the better of the 3. As I said, they will all heal wounds and fix blood loss, and that's something that we'll touch on in a bit. The other thing you have to be conscious of, even in early game, is having blacked out limbs. Your legs and arms, particularly your legs, really are going to make the biggest difference to the survivability of a raid. If your legs are blacked out, you basically won't be able to walk very fast, and your aim will be awful because you kind of hobble all over the place. The only way you can't fix blacked out limbs, but the only way to allow you to walk normally again is to use either a painkiller or a morphine, and one of those 2 things will let you move normally. Just to note that if you have blacked out arms, whenever you ADS, your aim will be all shaky. Neither of the painkillers or the morphine will resolve that. So just make sure that you take a painkiller with you. I normally keep a painkiller or morphine in my pockets, but as I said before, and the same with the cheese and the bandage, it's always worth keeping something spare in your secure container. I normally in a later game will take a spare IFAK and a morphine, and then I have my main meds up here in my rig and in my pockets, and these are really what you need. If you're going full geared, you might want to also consider taking a Vaseline and a Golden Star. They essentially, the Vaseline will repair any fractures, and it is a 10-use item. So unlike the Splint, which is a 1-use item and will also repair fractures, the the Vaseline is vastly superior to that, so it's worth replacing splints with the Vaseline when you get the chance. And Golden Star will also has 10 uses, and actually if you have a blacked out stomach will give you 100 hydration, which will essentially get you out of any raid without dehydrating. And just to finally clarify, the bottle of ibuprofen here it does the same thing as the painkiller, but has 12 uses instead of the painkiller's 4. As I understand it, each of the uses on these has a different time duration that it's effective for before it runs out. The morphine I think is 8 minutes, and the painkillers it's either 3 or 4, and I believe it's the same for the ibuprofen as well. So now you've got your spare meds, and we're going to bind our main meds. We want to get ready to go into the raid and load our weapon. So the one thing that I always advise is outside of just loading your magazines first and taking spare ammo, you'll notice sometimes when you spawn into a raid that you hear other players cocking their weapons as they spawn in. That happens quite often. The way to eliminate that and to potentially prevent your position being given away by that very audible noise is actually to load around in the chamber before you leave your inventory, and that will prevent you from having to cock your weapon when you go into the raid and spawn. So all you have to do for that is just take your stack of ammo and drag and drop it over the weapon, and it will just drop one into the chamber and remove it from the stack of ammo. So now we're about ready to go. We want to go ahead and choose our map. Couple of things. First of all, daylight hours are generally between around 6 AM and 8 PM. There may be some slight overlap there, so make sure you pick the correct time phase. The second thing is sometimes you will find that if you leave your game open for too long, the times actually go out of sync, and you might think you're picking 11 AM in the morning and you'll spawn in the raid and it's nighttime. So it's worth intermittently restarting your game every couple of hours, or especially if you notice this becoming an issue. When you spawn into the raid, it tells you on the bottom left hand side of the screen what the actual time is. So you can always tell from that how out of sync the time actually is. So moving on to the insurance screen, and this is another big deal, and I've briefly mentioned it in my other videos, but you should always insure everything, excluding items in your gamma unless you are rich, because insuring the key tool will take this number here from 82,000 all the way down to 19 depending on the value of the keys that's inside it, and if it's in your secure container, there's no reason that you'll lose it. So insuring it is really a waste of money in that regard. Everything else you'll get back if you die and nobody else extracts with your gear, so that can actually be really helpful if you are struggling financially in the game, to be able to come back in 24 hours and have some of your gear that you lost waiting for you. Saves you having to rebuy some things. Quite often people will take stuff, but you will find things like rigs, magazines and things like that that you will fairly consistently get back, and those things, you know, it saves you having to rebuy them. So once you've insured and you're ready, you can go ahead and pop straight into the raid. So once you spawn in, you want to check the fire mode of the weapon. Just get comfortable with where you are and your gun. Check the fire mode and check your sight. Make sure you understand how it operates. And if you're wearing a helmet with a visor, you can use N to turn that on and off. Obviously that will limit your visibility somewhat. So it's up to you as to how and when that you turn it on. Whenever you're playing any of the maps, you want to make sure that you have a basic understanding of where the key spawns are for those maps. It's always a good idea to check the key spawns, even if you already have the key, because you can now sell those for a lot of money on the flea market. And one of the most important aspects of combat in this game is to shoot and move. You always want, after you've engaged with an enemy, you want to make sure that you move, rotate, be unpredictable. As you can see here, this scav is looking back to where I was, and it's an easy kill for me in the back of his head. Now immediately at this point, I'm looking at my health in the top left. If you ever bleed, which is the little square red thing top right of your character, you need to heal that, otherwise you will bleed out. And make sure you always are listening for movement. Now you've cleared the area, you want to just heal up and move on. Bear in mind that you also have a black stomach now, which means that your hydration will go down very quickly. So that's something we want to check, and we want to check it frequently. And one of the first things that we're going to do is go and search for something to allow us to increase our hydration so that we aren't rushing out of the raid. While we're doing that, we're also going to be searching here. One thing you'll want to do and learn is how to quickly move items from containers into your bag. And you do that with control left click. If you want to put it onto your person, say it's a gun that you want to move onto your back or into your holster, you just use Alt instead of Control, and that will automatically move it. And then as you're looting, right click on any weapons you get and see if you're able to fold them. I got lucky here and I found some golden star, and this is perfect for our hydration issue. So we're just going to go ahead and use it. As I said before, it has 10 uses, so at this point it's going to give us 100 hydration again, and that will last us for some time. You also want to make sure you're trying to complete tasks on every raid you go into. Here I kind of forgot, but then I checked it before I went to extract, and I was able to come into the north wing of the resort and complete this task. There is also a key spawn next door here, so we're going to go in and check the key spawn too. That key's worth a decent amount. And then a good tip for range shots is to go prone. You'll find that your aim is steady, and even with a blacked out arm, right here my aim is a lot steadier than it would be if I was crouched or standing. Another pro tip, hit your shots. And once you've engaged, you want to keep moving between each shot. And this is where you see the effect of the blacked out arm on my scope. Just moving around everywhere. And now we've cleared that area, we want to check where our extracts are, so double press O to do that. And at this point I hear a guy to my right, and I realise that I'm on the wrong side of the map because the extract that's actually close to here is not available, and so we have a long way to go. We want to check our hydration again, so I'm going to go ahead do that and top it back up to 100 to get us through to the end of the raid. So that's it for today's video. I hope it's been informative. I hope you've learned something useful. If you have, again, please hit the subscribe button, and also come follow me on Twitch, where I'll answer any questions that you might have in chat there at twitch.tv/DJQuest. The link for that and my Twitter will be in the description. And as always, please feel free to leave any comments below if there's anything you'd like me to cover or that you're still not sure about. And I'll see you next time. Peace.